Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Tony Carcamo, president of Civil CAD Learning Solutions and also president of the DFW BIM Infrastructure User Group. And welcome to another session of Tech Talk Tuesday. So today we have a great guest. I've actually known Sam for a few years. We actually had him on, I think, what, 2 years ago, or was it 2 years ago, with the Beyond Typicals. And just recently, I found out, hey, he's got a new toy, new shiny toy that I definitely are excited about. And he's going to go over the new Civil Engine beta, right? Sam, take it away. Be sure you can post questions on the chat. I don't know. I think the Q&A is open also. But yeah,
Okay, Tony, if you'll let me share my
yeah,
screen.
go ahead. Should be open now.
Okay. All right. So just by way of organization, so I'm just going to briefly give background on myself. I'm going to demo our first product, Beyond Typicals, and then I'm going to jump into Civil Engine, both in PowerPoint and in presentation. And then I really want to open up this to conversations, questions, answers for you guys. So my name's Sam Lytle. I am the founder of BeyondCAD. I started my career with Nevada Department of Transportation, and uh, this is like 2011 time frame. That's when I fell in love with 3D visualization, and I'm from the Nevada area. I'm now in the Reno Tahoe area. And in 2014, I started a company called Civil FX, and we provided 3D visualization services for transportation and civil groups. So we were like a viz shop, and we worked for DOTs, cities, engineering firms, providing 3D visualization services primarily in transportation and civil engine. And I am a licensed civil engineer, and that's been the focus of my career is 3D visualization as it relates to civil engineering, especially in transportation. And it was during these years of civil FX that I really became very familiar with the problems associated with not good tools in our industry for 3D visualization in transportation. And so we had kind of a diverse shop of programmers, artists, engineers making those renders for our clients. And in 2020, I sold that company to Parametrics, and to this day, they're still doing their work. So if you need help, you can reach out to Parametrics in their biz group. But that's when I started BeyondCAD with the goal of making a better tools for industry so that we could have these same visualization tools that we see like in architecture or product visualization. And so that was our goal is to go beyond CAD and make kind of a software publisher. So in 2022, so about 3 years ago, we launched Beyond Typicals, which is a 3D typical section creator, which I'll demo. And and that's been going very well. It's become kind of industry standard for typical section generation, and it's also been pushed kind of beyond what we thought it could originally be used for. And then last year we started work on a Civil Engine, which is a more robust visualization engine for transportation, and I will get into that more in depth. So I do want to show Beyond Typicals briefly. Again, this is used by more than 150 organizations, and uh, and maybe some of you on this call are familiar with it. If you are interested, I encourage you to reach out to our contact us page. Brian Stropes on this call. He's kind of our point of contact on Beyond Typicals, and so you'll probably be working with him. But essentially, this is an interactive drag and drop 3D typical section creator. I'm going to just kind of bounce through a couple example projects that we have preloaded in the software. So you can see here, this is kind of adjacent in an urban scenario to these buildings. And we have phasing, so we can go existing, trenching, lane closure, final. So quick communication, and it's pretty easy to put these things together. And our goal with all of our software at BeyondCAD is to democratize visualization so that the engineers can do the visualization themselves, kind of empower those designing the projects to also visualize and communicate the projects. And so we want these to be intuitive projects where you don't need a background in visualization. You don't need to know 3D modeling. You don't need to know Blender and Photoshop, that you can just learn our software and be able to make the visuals straight out of there. And the goal with Beyond Typicals as a civil engine is to produce image and visual graphics for presentation. We just heard from a customer that used Beyond Typicals to make graphics for a proposal, and they ended up winning an 7 or 8 figure contract. And they were able to do it themselves. And so they were very excited about that. And so we hear that a lot also for public outreach during the project. That's part of the appeal of Beyond Typicals as well. So you can see here, I'm showing retaining walls, so you can show height. And you may be familiar with something like StreamX, which does this to a simpler level on the web. This is kind of the next level of that. And so you can see here we have more of a transit rail scenario. And down here, again, we have the buttons where we can switch to two different alternatives to show sideboarding versus centerboarding. And you can switch between those in real time, or you can make image or video renders with those. Also possible within Beyond Typicals is photo compositing. And we were noticing early on that our customers were using it for this, but they would go like do post-processing in Photoshop. And so we built it in. So now you can import your own images and put them behind or in front of your 3D model. And then you get like this drone shot here. You can see it's just the same typical section. We've just kind of sandwiched it between these trees in the front and the background back there. And then you can save this view once you get it lined up. And so photo compositing is also an essential part of Beyond Typicals. Brian's better at doing these demos. So again, if you're interested in Beyond Typicals, I recommend setting up a call. But just to show how easy it is, you start out with a blank project. You start dragging in your sections from this panel on the right. Maybe we want to add a median, and let's add some curbs. Let's flip the curb. Let's add some lanes in the other direction. Flip those. Add another curve. All of the striping is customizable. So let's delete that. And then maybe we want to add some parking and a bike lane and sidewalk. And then let's adjust the striping here. Delete the striping here. And we've done calls with clients where they've maybe shared a typical section drawing or kind of explained it to us, and in real time have built it out for them. And so that's how powerful Beyond Typicals is to communicate your project. This is 100 feet is the default, and we can get that out. You can go from, I think, 20 feet out to 1,000 feet. So yeah, Brian's put his contact information in the chat, so reach out to him if you have more information. But again, this is both simple because it's a typical section, but it's also limited. You can't do any sort of intersections. You can get kind of push in that direction by doing like crosswalk scenarios like I have here. That the traffic is a little bit smart, where you can make it kind of stop and wait. So you can see here we have these flashers at the school zone. We can show before and after in this 4-lane scenario. You can show before and after in a 2-lane scenario. So you can kind of do like mid-block crossings, but you can't do intersections. And then just one other project. This is one of our favorite ones to show. And this is a very common scenario where we have a business corridor. We want to maintain access either through vehicles or pedestrian access during construction of a project. And in Beyond Typicals, we can show all of those different steps in multiple alternatives, the main water replacement option 1 and option 2. And then you can see here how we're maintaining pedestrian access while maintaining a safe environment throughout the construction of the project. And then we go to final improvement. And we could just jump from existing to final if we wanted, or we could show all those steps. And again, you could do that. You can produce image and video renders for all of this. So Beyond Typicals is our primary product right now and has been a hit in the industry. So I'm going to close that and talk about our next product, which is Civil Engine. Again, Beyond Typicals is very easy, but you're limited on those straight segments, and so you can't get too crazy with stuff. So both of our software applications are built on Unreal Engine 5, and Civil Engine is the same thing. The difference, not the same thing, it's the same paradigm, which is we're trying to create graphics and visuals and make it accessible for those designing their projects. The difference is beyond typicals, you don't need anything to get started. You just drag and drop the sections. Civil Engine, you need a base model to get started. You need a 3D model of your project to import into Civil Engine to visualize. And we're working on testing and refining a lot of workflows, but the ones that we're focused the most on are SketchUp and secondarily InfraWorks. We're also looking at directly from OpenRoads Designer. Civil Engine supports EPIX and OBJ imports. So theoretically, if you can export those file formats, you might be able to bring them into Civil Engine, but it's not always the best results. And to be honest, this is the hardest part of all of it, is getting your data from design into visualization. And we're doing our best to make that a seamless transition. And that's why we're trying to focus on a few workflows and then kind of expand out from there. And I'll demo kind of how this process works in just a minute. Core to Civil Engine is the ability to put traffic in there. And you do this placing one traffic path at a time. And then you can link those traffic paths together using intersection controllers and merge diverge linking. We're going to leave this in beta even after we do our public launch because we're still doing testing and refining. But the traffic placement, the intersection controllers, those are very robust. The merge diverge linking is still a work in progress. And one of the cool things about our advanced traffic is that it can be completely customizable, the traffic library. And you can do that per lane. So imagine a scenario where maybe you have an HOV lane and you want to make sure you never have trucks show up in there. That's possible. Or maybe you have a bus lane and you want to make sure that's only bus show up in there. That's possible. Or you can do that globally. So maybe there's one specific car that you don't want to show up at all. You can have that control. Or maybe you want, we have low poly vehicles. They're like just kind of white blocky shapes. And you want them all to show up for aesthetic reasons or performance reasons. You can do that as well. So all of that stuff is possible within the traffic system within Civil Engine. And the goal of our traffic system isn't to simulate, like be a replacement of Vissim. It's just to give a good representation of traffic to communicate your project. That's our goal. Like we want to democratize the communication of projects in 3D for our customers. This is not design software. It's not intended to be design software, and it doesn't even integrate with Vissim. And so that's why we're really trying to make these things work really well within the product itself. We have one of the core features is the path system. And for those that have used Beyond Typicals, this actually functions very similarly, where in Beyond Typicals, if you put an asset, you want to have that asset attached to a certain section. And then from there, offset left to right, up or down, spacing, all those things attached to the path. So this is the same thing, but you're placing the path using these points. And then from there, you can control the spacing, the offset, the scaling, and so on. And to be honest, when we did this, we were thinking, oh, this would be cool to put trees down a median or something like that. But the more we push this feature and this functionality, the more we realized how many different use cases this could be used for. Or, traffic. And then I was like, oh, wow, we could do this for barrier rail and guardrail to make it flexible in placement, which is something that hasn't really been possible before. And then pavement markings is another scenario, both things like arrows, but also things like linear pavement markings as well. Similar to the path system is the area system. And so you can imagine enclosing an area, and then it's the same paradigm where you're putting assets within that area, and then you're controlling the spacing. And in both for paths and areas, you can do multiple assets, up to 5 assets within that. So there's 5 different asset slots. So if you want to do maybe 3 different types of trees in the same area, you can do that. The same thing with paths. So with paths, you can do things like tree placement, 3D grass placement, and then even what we call area highlights, which is part of our visual graphics emphasis within Civil Engine. We have around 1,000 assets, and that includes static and dynamic assets. So static assets are things like trees or chairs or buildings. They're not really customizable. They may blow in the breeze, the trees, but you can't really customize them. Then we have dynamic assets where you can customize them. And these are things like construction equipment where you can choose which animation you want to show up. or maybe like a construction sign where you actually can type in the message on that dynamic message sign, DMS, for placement in there. We also have some dynamic traffic signals, and those can be linked. Some of them can be linked to our intersection controllers. Again, that's kind of a beta feature that we're pushing right now, and that will only improve from here on out. We have a library of materials, our texturing system, and we've really tried to kind of make these as realistic as possible. And again, for these transportation and civil projects, we are not interested in architectural projects at all. We've had several people reach out and just say, wow, this is really cool. I'm doing this building or this architectural adjacent project. And I'm like, there are other tools for that. Go use Lumion, go use Twinmotion. We're building this specifically for transportation and civil. And that's even to the point where when you place traffic paths, there's kind of a wear path, which is something that you'll see if you look at roads a lot, like I do. That's like my hobby, is to stare at highways and roads. And so those are the subtle things that we do to make it where you can take that base model and make it photorealistic without needing a background in visualization yourself. Also built into Civil Engine is phasing. You saw that a little bit in Beyond Typicals. Civil Engine is more robust. So everything that you place in the scene ends up in the hierarchy. And so when I say everything, I mean assets, dynamic assets, imported assets, paths, areas, base models, all of those show up in the hierarchy. And then from there, you can organize them into folders, or you can tag them with various phases or various alternatives. And this makes it very powerful to turn things on and off, depending on what you're trying to show and communicate as part of your project outreach. The goal is to build a realistic 3D model of your project. And once you do that, we want you to make image and video renders. And I'll show that we have several different ways that you can do that. But also, like, why not jump in? Why not walk around your project? This is video game technology. Let's leverage that. And so we call this explore mode. Currently, you're able to walk around as a first and third person, and then ride a bike in cycling mode. In the future, we hope to have some other modes like driving, helicopter, motorcycle. We really want to make this give a lot of options to the users to show off their project. I showed off photo compositing a little bit in Beyond Typicals. We've ported over that same functionality in Civil Engine, and so now we can blend these 3D models with images in the model with something more than just the typical sections. Now you can do roundabouts, diverging diamonds, intersections, and so on. Again, this is not an automated process. You have to manually match the camera. That's something that we hope to improve in the future. But once you get that matched, you can save that camera and return to it in the future. Visual graphics is a big part of Civil Engine because you want to have all the tools at your disposal to communicate your project. In the past, again, I had Civil FX. Our company and shops like us, you might make a render and then you'll go into post-processing and then you'll add labels or arrows or area highlights. In Civil Engine, you can do that stuff in your 3D model so that when it renders out, that stuff's already there. You don't have to go anywhere else. And that's one of the big goals of this is we want to give you the control to do all this stuff in Civil Engine so you don't need to go do anything in post-processing. And you don't have to know how to use Photoshop or After Effects or Final Cut Pro. Like, you can just do it all within Civil Engine, to the point that we even have Sequencer, which is basically video editing within Civil Engine. Again, our emphasis with this tool is transportation and civil infrastructure, and that's, you'll see that in the DNA of this product, along everything from the features to the assets to the visual graphics. All of that stuff is built for our industry. That's our primary focus. Our team is very small, but we've been working passionately towards this. This is like a passion project for me. This is probably the pinnacle of my career. It's something I'm more proud of than anything else that I've done in my career, is this product, Civil Engine. A few more things I mentioned here in the top left, that you can link traffic signals. Again, that's in beta, but that's coming along. With this path system, you can do rail and fence. And that's really cool because you can like connect things together, like barrier rail and fencing. And then when you move them, they move together. And we have some presets, which makes this really convenient. but you can also import your own cross-section of a barrier rail. And like maybe you have like a single slope face that's not in our library. You can import your own section and build that out yourself. I talked a little bit about customizable traffic library. You can see here, we have low poly cars that you can kind of transform the entire traffic library into. And we hear this a lot, both with Beyond Typicals and in our early conversations with Civil Engine. Like sometimes you don't want it to be too realistic, because then people are like, oh man, you're trying to make this look like that's the actual tree we'll use, or that's the actual light pole we'll use. And so we can do some tricks like this where we're communicating, hey, this is preliminary, this is subject to revision, and we're even hopefully going to have scene effects as well to do that. And down here in the bottom right, I talked a little bit about pavement markings. You can either have those as part of your base model if you know how to do those, or you can either do them all or supplementally in Civil Engine using our path system. All right, I'm going to now jump out to a demo. And again, I want to give time to you guys for questions. Let me just open up the chat. So I'll talk about licensing toward the end. I'll kind of leave that all together. So this is SketchUp. I know not everyone knows how to use SketchUp. And again, we're looking for direct links to do things like OpenRoads Designer via FBX or OBJ. But if you can get it into SketchUp, you're probably going to have a pretty good, you're going to have good success in Civil Engine. So you can see here, this was donated by one of our customers, Ardura. This was an OpenRoads Designer project, exported to SketchUp. And you can see here, one of the things that I've learned over my career is there's sometimes like a gap between design surface modeling and visualization modeling. So what I mean by that is if you're putting out construction documents, you're going to need road surfaces, cuts, fills, grades, earthwork, all that stuff in there. But you may not need curb ramps, you may not need barrier rail, you may not need striping. Those things can be handled with callouts. And so there is that gap between design modeling and visualization modeling. And we're finding more and more firms are doing that themselves. They have someone or teams of people that are kind of doing the higher detail modeling. And then one thing that we're now offering is client services, where you can hire us and we can make your base model kind of that visualization level quality. Because if you just bring in your road surfaces, there might be gaps, there might not be all the bridge elements, there might not be the curb ramps. Again, some of these things are handled via callouts. And so you do need to have a good base model, or you're not going to get very far in Civil Engine. So once you get there, then you can import it into Civil Engine, and it does not magically come in like this, but with some time, this is the goal, is to take it from, and that this is the same base model that I just showed you in SketchUp. You have this diverging diamond, and now you can see what happens when you apply these photorealistic textures. And some of the striping was from the base model, and some of the striping we've kind of supplemented here in Civil Engine. And then adding the traffic paths, the trees, all of these together, you now have a realistic representation of your project that we can use to make those image and video renders, or we can do explore mode, interactive stuff, things like that. So I'll show you around the interface a little bit. Down here in the bottom right, we have these visualizers, and this shows representation of all the paths that I've already placed. And so you can see all the traffic paths are in blue. The yellow ones are the pedestrian paths. You can also place assets using the path system. So you can see here, these trees have been placed using that. And so if you can use the path system, then you're going to have a lot more control. So like these trees, for example, I can go through and change the spacing. Right now they're 50 feet. I could change those to 25 feet and or whatever, 20 feet. And then you can change the offset either internally or externally. You can also do some randomization if you want to. So that's how the path system again works. Again, very similar to how this section work in Beyond Typicals. And if you are a Beyond Typicals user, Civil Engine should feel very familiar. We actually, from a technical perspective, we took Beyond Typicals 3 and we forked it and built Civil Engine on top of that. So the user interface everything from the details panel on the left. All these things should feel very similar to Beyond Typicals. The textures, the assets, a lot of those we built on top of that, but this is kind of foundationally from Beyond Typicals and then built on from there. I talked about the asset library. Let me turn off my path visualizers. So you can see here we have trees and rocks and bushes. Those are built into the software. So this is like a 10 gigabyte download, maybe 10 to 13 gigabyte download. And then when you unzip it, it's going to be like 30 to 35 gigabytes. And that's a big size, but a lot of that is because we are building in a lot of these assets so that you don't have to go out and find those. And they're going to follow the surface of my base model. And you can see here, now I've just added these trees, and I can select them, and I can rotate, scale them, customize them, and so on. And everything you place shows up in the hierarchy. To jump to another project, and if you're able to download this, these are example projects that are built into the software, and so I highly recommend checking these out, playing around with them, making renders from them, changing things in them. You're not going to break anything. And then we have even more. These are like kind of the small file size ones, but we have some big file size ones with like aerials and stuff that we didn't want to like blow up the download size of Civil Engine. And so you click on this more example projects, and that takes you to a special website where you can go and play around with some more of these. All right. Let me look at a few of these questions so I can make sure that I'm doing it. So Tony's asking about if I'm working off a cloud or a desktop. So this is a desktop application. This is very similar to a video game. So you're going to need a graphics card. Just same thing with Beyond Typical. Civil Engine, you probably want a better graphics card. We do have recommendations, maybe like RTX 3070 or better, but graphics cards are getting better all the time, and so that's really good. And then with Beyond Typicals, we have a cloud version where you don't have to have a graphics card. You're just running it in a browser on a cloud somewhere else. We will have that option for Civil Engine, but it's my guess that the desktop version is going to be more effective for Civil Engine. Do you have a model with track rails? You can add them to the model. Yes, you can do rail. The articulation is something that we are still perfecting, but that is possible. For future development, can this be used with the game controller? For current development, this can be used with a game controller. And that's, again, Brian's on our team. Brian Schoaf, he's on the call. He was just at the Minnesota Transportation Conference last week. And I think he spent most of the time with his Xbox controller playing around with some of these example projects. And so the way you do that, I'm going to double right click to zoom in, and then I'm going to press F1. And that is all it takes. And now you can walk around the project using WASD. This is the same technology as video games, and so we are going to utilize that. I can press C, and now I'm able to look around in first person. Let me shut off computer slowing down because I have so many things. And this. All right. So yeah, you're going to be able to drive that as well. And then to render it out, we have basic rendering, which is the same rendering panel as Beyond Typicals. This is very easy if you want to do something quick. If you want something more robust, you can go to the publisher. And from here, we can set up, this is an image set. Let's go to a video set. So here you can set up keyframes and kind of have the camera fly through your project however you want it to. And so this is like a 10-second camera fly through, and that's what you can preview it, and then you can render that out to whatever resolution, to whatever file folder you want as an MP4 file, and then you can use it for your presentation or your YouTube channel or whatever it is. So the publisher is more advanced, some more advanced features. And let me close Beyond Typicals as well. So, and that's really nice for some more dynamic views. And then let me show a few other goodies in here. So this is another example project. Actually, I'm going to load this. I have a saved version. It's better of this. And you can save everything every file. It's a proprietary file format called .ce for Civil Engine. And so if you have multiple Civil Engine users, you can kind of pass the files around. It kind of builds everything into a single file. And so when you have something like this is a construction phasing scenario. And so you can see here, we have this Gantt chart 4D phasing, and you have to set this up yourself. It doesn't automatically, like you can't link with like Microsoft Project or anything like that, but I can move around and kind of show how this project would be phased. This was like an earth and embankment road with pipes, and then through phasing, we have our detour, and then we get to the bridge here at the end. And this is a very simple example, but hopefully gives a good idea of how this tool can communicate dynamic projects that we all face. And then here in the sequencer, again, the publisher is kind of this special thing that I'm looking at now. We have cameras, we have 4D phasing, and then the sequencer is essentially video editing, but it's a little different because these aren't pre-rendered video clips. These are cameras that I'm linking together. So you can see here I have video set A, which is one of my cameras. And then this red one, this is the phasing chart. And so if I wanted to phase that faster, then I could slow that down. And now it's going to do all of those phases even more quickly. But I want to bring that out. So this should be very intuitive for most people to use. You can see here we also have labels that I put in here. These are the green ones. And then the orange one is even time of day. And in the future, we'll have more things that you'll be able to sync in, maybe like camera settings and so on. Again, our goal with Civil Engine is once you have that base model, then you can import it and you can go to final production all within this tool without the need to understand video editing or anything else right here with the sequencer. Let me look at our comments. No VR capabilities, Tony. That's something that we'll do as part of Explore mode in the future, but nothing right now. Project from Civil 3D to Civil Engine. So not directly. Civil 3D is such a design tool that it seems like the surfaces and the textures don't really come in that great. And so what we found is it's best to go to Civil 3D to InfraWorks and then to Civil Engine. That's our recommended workflow as of now. In the future, we would love to build some plugins in Civil 3D where you can link it. We just don't have those yet. And then Tony, when you bring in files from InfraWorks, then is it dynamic update? It's not dynamic update. Right now, you have to re-import it if something changes. We hope to have in the near future the ability to refresh file importing for both FBX and OBJ, whether they come from InfraWorks or SketchUp or whatever. But we don't have that. We don't have that yet. So I'm going to do some other projects and continually answering. If we have TIA data, can you import the data similar to traffic? I don't know what TIA data is, but if that's something like VisSim traffic simulation information, no, like you have to set up your own traffic paths, your own intersection controllers in Civil Engine. Yeah, traffic import analysis. Nope, you can't do that stuff. You have to manually set that up in here. If you have 3ds Max, export Civil 3D model to Civil View to 3ds Max, then import from Max. Probably, but it's really hard for us to focus on all of those different workflows. I mean, there's Blender, there's 3ds Max, there's Navisworks. And so we're getting some of our beta testers to test some of that stuff. But right now we're just trying to focus on, like, if you can get into SketchUp or InfraWorks, you're probably gonna have good success. In Civil Engine, this is probably also a good opportunity to say, we are in beta. We launched alpha in the fall. We launched beta in February. We're actually going to launch beta 2 this week for those of you that are involved in that. So that will be coming out too. And then we're going to do our public launch in May. So everything right now is free to use. So if you're interested, reach out to Brian at beyondcad.com, and just say you want beta, and we can send you a download link and you can play around with this. It's free to use. It's unlimited. You could use it for client projects if you're so inclined. But the caveat is this version is going to stop working when we launch our public version in May, and then you'll have to go download the final version 1 at that point. So just reach out to Brian if you're interested in testing this out. And as far as the licensing, I mentioned I would talk about that. I'll actually pull up our website. We're doing this. So if I go to BeyondCAD, and you guys can go to this too, beyondcad.com/pricing. Then we have Beyond Typicals, is around $2,000 per year per person. We also have monthly pricing, which is around $200 per month per person. Civil Engine is going to be about 50% more than that, $3,000 per year per person, and $300 per month per person. We also have floating licenses, and if you're interested in enterprise, you can reach out to us. We have that already for Beyond Typicals. A lot of our customers, essentially, they start out with 1 or 2 licenses. They find out that it's easy to use, and a lot of people want to use it, and then they buy one of our higher priced floating enterprise licenses, and those can be shared with a team. And then you can stack on 2, 3, 4 concurrent licenses for those. So Civil Engine will have the same sort of thing, where if you want more than one person to use it and you want to share that license, then you can buy one of our enterprise plans, and then you can share that among a team. And the software, it's free to download. I mean, the beta is free totally, but when, like with Beyond Typicals and when this is public, it's free to download. And there are 2 ways. You can either do it through the Epic Game Launcher, which is how you can download games and some other tools, or you can download it as a zipped folder. And then what the licensing does is it just goes in and it removes the watermarks. So when you go to activate, right now it's just activate beta code, but when you have a license, there's like a 17-digit code that you paste in there, and then it just removes watermarks. And so if your license expires, you can still open the software. There's just watermarks on there and on your renders. All right, Tony, can you run simple surface pavement area quantities? Nope, no quantities, no design. This is pure visualization. We may add some of those features in the future, but for now, we've just been focused on making renders with this. Can you create a record video simulation? What video quality can you create? Yeah, you can render out whatever resolution you want. We have presets. We have 1080p, 4K, 8K, or you can, like, let's say that you want to do something for TikTok or something, like you could make whatever resolution you want. And it will render that video file out that way. Primarily we have MP4 or we have Avid, but I recommend MP4 for those. From your experience, which application runs better or smoother, the desktop or the cloud? Well, it depends on if you have how good your graphics card is. This is running on a 4090 mobile, like laptop graphics card, but I'm running in 4K, which slows things down. So it's just going to be dependent on a lot of factors. The cloud, you have to deal with, the cloud and your internet connection. So there are kind of some more bottlenecks involved there, but we do have a number of users that pay for that. It's an add-on. It's like 25% more for the cloud, and that's just an option. Some people use both based on convenience. I had a question about 360-degree videos. We don't have that yet, but that's on our roadmap. We will add it definitely. I don't know if we'll get that in by public, but I mean, a little behind the curtain, what we want is up here, there's cameras, 4D phasing, and sequencer, but we want a 4th one called presenter mode. And that's kind of like a streamlined interface that you can customize, and then you can choose which cameras show up, which phases show up, and that's going to be really good for interactive presentations or public meetings or touchscreens. We don't have that yet. I don't know if we'll have that in time for public launch, but that will be available this year. And beyond that, we're going to have what we call publish to web, which will allow you to choose whichever cameras you want and then render them out, and it will kind of just generate an embed code that you'll put in your website, and that will have the images and videos, including 360 image and videos, because that's like just publishing this huge file to the web isn't currently possible, but doing some of those 360 videos and publishing the web will get us pretty far there. So that should be coming. So Tony's saying RTX 3080, like that should be fine for most of these, especially if you're 1080, like if your monitor is 1080, then like most of these example projects are probably going to run just fine with that. but download the beta and try it. That's something that I always encourage. Like if anyone wants to buy this stuff, like make sure that you pay for or you test it out before you jump in there. And then Shoni was asking about maximum 3D model size. There's no hard limits on model size. Early on, we ran into a 2 gigabyte file size limit, but we overcame that. So now I've done files in testing that are like 10 to 12 gigabytes, because once you get these aerial textures, they can get really big. So there's no technical file size. That said, there are some files, like this is an Open Roads Designer project donated from my friends at Nevada Department of Transportation. And this was actually many miles long, and I needed to break it up into smaller file size because when I tried to import the entire thing, it would just either take a really long time or it would crash. And so again, getting the base model into Civil Engine is the biggest hurdle. So if you can get in there, then there's just so many fun things that you can do. But we do understand that is hard. We're trying to do our best to streamline the process, both in the software and in our training information. But there's no hard limit. It's just based on how many polygons are in there. What's your aerial texture size? What's your hardware? What's your RAM? Like these are just all the parameters that determine what size of project you can open up in Civil Engine. I mean, one example is like, I think Unreal Engine has a texture limit. So it's like, I think anything bigger than 8K textures, which is like 8,100 pixels. I just don't think it's going to work. So this one, I had to downsample this aerial because it was like 20,000 pixels on one side. So that's just an example of how you may have to optimize and clean up your base model before bringing it in. Tony's asking about signage library. Yes, that's something that we're still working on. But if you go to library assets and you go to signs and signals, we have a number of them. I'll just place them here just to show, something like a stop sign or a wrong way, or we've got some school signs. And then some of these also have flashers on them. As you can see here that we've got that.
Look like the
And then
screen
we've
is
also
locked. I don't know. It looked like it's locked
some
at
of
my
them.
end, the screen.
Oh, is my screen locked?
It looks like. Does it look locked in everybody else's screen right now? Yeah, it says, there it goes. It was a delay. There we go. Now it shows.
Okay. I'm probably moving around too fast too.
It was just that last 10 seconds. So,
Okay. Can you see these signs now, Tony?
yes, yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we do have a sign library. We do have plans for a custom sign creator. We don't have that in there yet. You could make your own signs like in SketchUp and import them as individual models. We've done that quite a bit. But for now, you just have these ones or whatever you want to bring in. And then you can kind of build some of your own, especially if you want some of these interactive elements. You could bring like this flasher and place it on your own structure, for example. I'm going to scale this up just so that you can get an idea of how that looks. And then like if you wanted a flashing left turn, for example, you could do that. And we have these in here in our static assets, or we have some in our dynamic assets. So like if I wanted to put a round light signal, then I can put that in there. And we have two different styles. We have like the LED dot style, or we have the solid, and then you can change the color. And then you can change the flash interval if you want that to flash. So those are completely customizable, and you can put those on your own structures if you want. Sun, yep, absolutely, you can do sun. Actually, I'm going to show as part of that. I talked about compositing, and just so that you see how that works. So in this one, we have aerial, but it doesn't extend out forever. So we've got to be mindful of our cameras. But this is close enough to where I live that I went out and flew my drone and got some drone shots. And so now I have the aerials on a phase that I can turn off. And now it's a matter of just like positioning that where it needs to be. And once you do, which can take a couple minutes. Again, that's automated right now, but you can save that camera position, and then and now I can render that out. So you can see here that we have these transmission poles shooting a shadow out to the this is the east in this scenario. So we can go to our sun settings and we can kind of move those around to match that. If you're ever doing photo compositing, you want to do your best to match the sun in the photos that you have. And so yeah, you can totally do that. And actually, let me show one other example project. Part of the reason why there are not more projects that are visualized is because the surrounding context is really hard to do, which means really expensive to do in a lot of scenarios. You may have to pull terrain for the mountains, or maybe you have to have an artist model the buildings. It's really hard to get context around your building or around your project. And so in Beyond Typicals, we've embraced kind of the floating in the sky aesthetic. And I actually hope more people will do that in Civil Engine, because then you're going to get more opportunities to do more projects. Like you can see here, like I just chunked it off, and you could do that for an intersection. And if you go back to our environment settings, then you have those same controls that you had in Beyond Typicals. Let's say that we wanted to, make this bright and fun, or match like branding or for a project or anything like that. So yeah, you have that control. You can also turn the clouds on and off if you want them. But yeah, that's something that we have as part of this. All right. Yeah, so I'll show a few more things, but I do want to end before the end of the hour. But if anyone else has any more questions, I'll just keep monitoring these the comments. So I did want to go back to this, we call this North Valley's Middle project. This is kind of a highway project. And I'm from Nevada, and a lot of my connections are from this area. And so a lot of the projects that we have as demo projects are more highway focused, but this is really good for urban environments. It can do kind of transportation adjacent projects like landscaping, like site design. There are a lot of types of projects that this can do beyond what you're seeing in some of these demos. But one of the things that you get in some of these projects is you want to do kind of like a fly-through camera, like either showing flying over the project, or you want to do a driver's view. And so in the past, when I would do this, you just have to like keyframe a bunch of keyframes, and it's a pain. But what we can do in Civil Engine is we have the ability to connect a camera to a path. So here I can go to link to path. Let's do traffic all. Let's start it something like this, and let's end it something like that. Right now it's 10 seconds. Let's make that more like 30 seconds. And now we've linked the camera to a path. And so very easily we can get that movement that we want. And right now it's really high, but you can adjust all of those parameters here. You can do offset from that path. You can do offset vertical or behind. You can do tilt, both vertical and horizontal, or you can do presets. So like I think straight aligned low, this is going to be something like driver's view. So you can get that driver's view perspective very easily using this system. So this is all built into Civil Engine. All right.
Hi, Sam. I don't know if you saw that one question, if it was multi-core or multi-thread processing or single core processing.
Oh, I'm not technical enough to know the answer to that, so my guess is probably not. But yeah, this is, I know it's more reliant on the GPU probably than the CPU, but yeah, whatever is native for Unreal Engine, that's probably most likely. Let me show, again, if you're able to download beta, I encourage you to test around on these example projects. This is another demo where we're kind of utilizing some of the construction stuff. I know not everybody wants to show smoke coming out of their rollers, but I mean, it's cool. Come on, we are big kids playing around with Tonka trucks at the end of the day. So these are fairly customizable. And another thing that's fun too is we have this example project called Empty Slabs, which is like there are four quadrants. We have asphalt, soil, water, and concrete. And then like if you want to play around with the areas, for example, like let's say we want to place a bunch of trees, then you can just place them like that. Right now I have the visualizer turned off, but you can have the visualizer turned on. And this works for trees, but it also works for like 3D grass. You can see here how we can adjust that in real time if we want. And these presets, they're nice because they have multiple assets in there. So like we have three different matching pine trees, and they're all part of this as three different asset slots. But let's say that we wanted to add something with like some fall colors, but we didn't want to place another area, then we can do that by doing add asset slot, and then let's do fall. I think we have some alder tree autumn. So now we've got some more trees in there, and then we can adjust the spacing of those trees. Maybe we want the scale to be bigger. This is probably a terrible example, but we'll give you an idea of how you can blend. That's a lot of trees. How you can blend this stuff together. Let's do 50 feet spacing. There we go. Without having to place like a ton of different areas in the same place. Very cool. Yeah, so the areas, these are fun to play around with, and I recommend this like example project, the slabs, to do that for 3D grass. You can see here. This is kind of a use at your own risk. Don't try this at home thing. If you made a big area of 3D grass, it might melt your GPU. That's something that we're working on, is like some more optimization. This is optimized, like it's using all of our assets either use nanite or LOD, level of detail. That said, like there are a lot of polygons here, and you just have to kind of be careful on placing that. And we do hope to put some more UI warnings and training around that kind of information. And then our highlights. So, these are really cool for construction, but maybe you want to use them for kind of like how you use hatching in Civil 3D. So we've got a bunch of different textures in here, and you can customize all of those. So the speed is really slow. Speed that up. Yeah, you can control the opacity, the color, the type of texture. We've got lines, we've got crosshatch, we've got dots. There are a bunch of different things that you could do if you wanted to call out different parts of your project. All right, so a modern multi-core processor is recommended to handle software efficiency. Okay, so that's from our website. So it must be completely true, because I'm sure nothing on our website is inaccurate at all. Tongue in cheek. All right. If there are no more questions,
All right. I mean, that
Tony,
was
I
pretty
can throw it
cool.
back to you.
Yeah, great presentation. Yeah, I was excited to hear about this. So, one of our members like, "Hey, did you hear about the new product?" And I'm like, "What? Let me go check it out." So, um, but no, really great stuff. I want to thank everyone that's still logged in. We had a good group join us today. It is recorded, so once I get it downloaded, I'll upload it on our YouTube channel, and then you'll also find it on the Beyond Typicals, I guess, social media platform. I'll give it to Sam also. So, but no, and I hope everyone got Sam's and what else was it? Brian's email?
Brian's. Yeah.
Yeah, on there. If you have any questions, if you want to beta test the product, also definitely shoot Brian and Sam an email. But really great stuff. I'm excited. And then you said it's going to be in April, mid-April, end of April.
May 15th is the public launch
Okay.
date, but
Okay.
again, that's kind of arbitrary because you can
Yeah.
already download this today for free.
Yeah.
The beta version is just going to get better from there.
Yep. Yep. Oh, well, awesome. I appreciate your time coming online. I'll definitely go download it and put it on one of my beta workstations and test it out and maybe do a blog post about it. So and try it on some of my projects that I'm currently working on. So does anybody have any last minute questions? All right, cool. All right, Sam. Well, thank you so much for coming online and presenting for our user group for the Tech Talk Tuesday, and hopefully we'll get to see you soon
Thank you,
again.
Tony.
And
Appreciate
so
it.
and stay in touch. Okay. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.